Divide and conquer. That's the way. Listen, at Right Side Media, I have been talking for the longest time now about the left's incessant attempts to fracture our society, break us down into smaller units. They like to call it on the left side intersectionality. It's where they divide us up into small parts and then cobble us all back together just to fit their notions. So the first thing they do is they try to break us down by race, and then by gender, and then by handicap, and then by gender identity and sexual persuasion, and then also by ethnic subgroups. And, when the whole of society is fractured, then they have the ability to move in and divide us even further along ideological or financial or working status or even geographic lines. Look, case in point is a recent handout that was found in an employee break room at Home Depot. You might remember this. Now, in truth, Home Depot corporate has disavowed the flyer and the training that it apparently accompanied, sort of. They threw the local franchisees under the bus, right? But also said that they support training that creates fairness, equity, diversity. Okay. The flyer was subtitled, Unpacking Privilege. Under the title, Leading Practices were listed. The worksheet examines different types of what it calls privilege, including social privilege, white privilege, and heterosexual privilege, by breaking down what privilege looks like. One example reads, if you're confident the police exist to protect you, you have white privilege. Another reads, if you can expect time off from work to celebrate your religious holidays, you have Christian privilege. The worksheet also defined racial prejudice as a, quote, set of discriminatory or derogatory attitudes based on assumptions coming from perceptions about race and skin color. It eventually asked the employees to literally check their privilege, whether it be white privilege or class privilege or Christian privilege or cisgender privilege or able-bodied privilege or heterosexual privilege. I mean, basically, yeah, I would wind up burning through a stubby pencil checking off every one of their ridiculous boxes on their ridiculous worksheet. But here's the thing. In a never-ending battle of wits and nitwits, the left screams for inclusivity, but they practice the act of self-segregation. Think about it. Inclusivity doesn't occur naturally when your mode is to constantly point out differences, right? There's a lack of commonality in the left's intersectionality. They destroy unity by preaching inclusivity and acting out actual exclusivity. Why is that? It's so they can divide and conquer, that's why. I don't know if you saw it or not, but there's another prime example of this divide and conquer mentality that's right here in Alabama. Good old red state Alabama, in Birmingham. We now have one of the few in the nation I've ever heard of like this, a school called the Magic City Acceptance Center. It's a charter school, paid for with public funds, whose charter actually distinguishes not on the basis of providing a quality education, but on the basis of LGBTQ teenagers having a quality education. Really? Yes. I feel certain that the recent drag queen fundraiser they held at the Magic City Acceptance Academy helped augment their ability to further divide children from the mainstream society while at the same time screaming for more inclusivity, diversity, and equity. Look, self-segregation, it does not work. And folks, what we're in right now, this is a battle for our society. They do not want us to be united. But like my wife says too often, there's more of us than there are them. And I agree with her. I personally don't want a white, cisgender, upper middle class, heterosexual, all-male society or school or workplace. But you know what? If it happens by accident, fine. But not because we're setting out to make it that way. Neither should we, though, sit idly by and just be told that we must have exclusive societal fractures or schooling segments or isolated workplaces based on notions of what they call intersectionality, where the same homogenous society that America's been building for over 2 centuries is just broken down into tribes. There was a recent writing that I read through by a pastor that I follow. He got very candid. He said, here's his quote. He said, quote, "We're in a winner-take-all spiritual war for the soul of America." The left certainly knows this, and the left has pulled out all the stops. They no longer even attempt, he said, to masquerade their attempts at taking over. Winning by persuasion and numbers is no longer their plan. They intend to take over by force, laws, and intimidation in their demented minds, and they think that parents no longer have the right to control the education of their children. Now, that kindergartners are supposed to be indoctrinated regarding sexual preferences. Ooh. The fruit of allowing humanistic ideals, he said, is to control our nation. Now, in complete manifestation, he said truth no longer matters, and lying to advance their agendas is perfectly acceptable. And the average American, even those who do not profess to be Christians, just shakes their heads in wonder, asking, how did we get to this insane point? It's a great question. I would add to his comments that they will attempt to win by dividing society into sections, by allowing some to intersect while putting the brakes on others. So what do we do about it? What can we, as those who lean towards things on the right side of the spectrum, do or say or commit to that will preserve who we are as a people? Not divided, but equally sharing in this great and wonderful liberty that the founders felt inspired to put in place for all of our generations. Without question of division. Without question of division. We must be prepared and committed and ready to stand, in my opinion. General George Patton, never known to mince his words, once told his men, you must acquire the warrior's soul. And that's a part of it. So here's another strong quote from Patton. He said, there are 3 ways that men get what they want: by planning, by working, and by praying. Any great military operation, he said, takes careful planning or thinking, and then you must have well-trained troops to carry it out. That's the working part. But between the plan and the operation, he said, there's always an unknown. That unknown that can spell defeat or victory. That unknown that creates success or failure. It's the reaction of the actors in the fight to the ordeal when it actually comes that makes a difference. And he said, some people call that just getting the brakes. In his words, he said, I call it God. And I agree. George Patton said it. He said, God has his part or his margin in everything, and that's where prayer comes in. Well, folks, that's exactly right. We have to be willing to fight, to stand. We have to be willing to say enough's enough. We have to be willing to actually say no once in a while. We have to also be willing to say, your ideas of diversity, that's nothing but division. Here at Right Side Media, we are committed to the ideas that made this whole nation great. We live in a state right now here in Alabama where the Latin phrase is Udimus jura nostre defendere, meaning we dare defend our rights. And we are just one state in one part of a vast nation, a nation whose actual motto is E pluribus unum, which means out of many, one. Not intersectionalities, not divisions, not breakdowns, not self-segregating, one. Every single day I get ready to face my day with the opportunity, I hope, to educate, enlighten, empower, and entertain all of y'all on the principles that I believe make us a liberty-minded community. To give you some sense of things as I see it, and also, by the way, to maybe add a little bit of knowledge so when you're standing there having that water cooler conversation or talking to somebody in the fast food line or in Sunday school or at work or wherever you may be, that you are more prepared for the fight. That's my goal, that's my mission, that's my calling. I believe that every single one of us should know that as we look at life, there is nothing that stops us from being able to say things like, Jesus is Lord and America is great. Life is worth living. That's why I do what I do. Because y'all, I'm going to be honest with you. I believe this is not only a fight, but it's a fight worth having. We're in this fight together. And yes, there's more of us than there are of them. And as much as they want to divide us, as much as they want you to believe that there are too many differences, and because of those differences, we have to seek more diversity. Their idea of diversity is purely division, because by division, they can conquer, and we can't let it happen. Stand together. There's more of us than there are of them. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way.